I decided to surprise my wife at her office. She was the CEO. Big glass building, restricted floors, the kind of place where people wore silence like a uniform. At the entrance, there was a sign, authorized personnel only. I told the security guard, "I'm here to see Vanessa Mercer, I'm her husband." He didn't even hesitate. He laughed. Not politely, not awkwardly. Like I'd just told a joke that landed too well. "Sir," he said, shaking his head, "I see her husband here every day." Then he pointed toward the elevators. "And there he is right now." I turned. A man in a tailored navy suit stepped out of the elevator, like he belonged there, mid-40s. Confident. The kind of presence that didn't ask for space, it took it. Expensive watch, straight posture, calm, controlled stride. "Mr. Cole," the guard called. "Your wife's still in her 3 p.m., should wrap in about 20. The man, Adrian Cole, nodded like that sentence made perfect sense. Like it was normal. Like he'd heard it 100 times. He hadn't seen me yet. I was standing off to the side, holding a paper bag from a Mediterranean place Vanessa liked. Still warm. My fingers tightened around the handles. Something in my chest didn't race. It stalled, like an engine misfiring. 28 years. I'd been married to Vanessa Mercer for 28 years, and apparently, she had another husband at work. I could have walked up to him, could have asked him what the hell he thought he was doing. Instead, I heard myself say, calm and steady, "I think I've got the wrong building." I've been married to Vanessa Mercer since 1998. We met when we were both 24. I had just started my first real job, entry-level risk analyst. Nothing glamorous. She was finishing her MBA. Already talking about markets, scaling models, 5-year plans like they were coordinates on a map she could actually reach. Vanessa was always like that. Precise, driven, certain. She didn't hope things would happen. She designed them. I was different. I liked things stable, predictable. I built systems, not empires. I made sure numbers balanced, that nothing collapsed when pressure hit. Over time, that became our rhythm. She climbed, I reinforced. When she got her first management role, I was the one who reworked our finances so she could take the pay cut and prove herself. When she moved into executive leadership, I handled everything at home: bills, insurance, taxes, investments, so she could focus on growth. She used to tell people, "Daniel is my foundation." She said it like a compliment. Back then, I took it as one. She became CEO at 44, a healthcare tech company that went from struggling startup to something investors actually fought over. I remember the night she got the call. She didn't cry, didn't celebrate. She just opened her laptop and started planning. That was Vanessa. Always moving forward. Always optimizing. We didn't have kids. That wasn't an accident. I wanted them. At least at the beginning. Not a big family, just one, maybe two. Something to come home to that wasn't spreadsheets or quarterly reports. Vanessa said children would disrupt her trajectory. Her words. Not mine. At least until I'm where I need to be. She told me. And I believed her. Or maybe I chose to. Years passed. Promotions stacked. Responsibilities grew. The right time kept shifting further down the line until eventually, it disappeared. I stopped bringing it up. Because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You adjust, you make space, you tell yourself the life you're building together is enough. And for a long time, I thought it was. I supported every late night, every canceled dinner, every trip that turned into another week away. I learned not to ask when she'd be home, just whether she'd eaten. I cooked, I cleaned, I kept things running. I made sure there was always something solid beneath her feet, because I thought we were building something together. A life, a partnership, something that made all the trade-offs make sense. But, standing there in that lobby earlier that day, listening to a security guard casually point at another man and call him my wife's husband, I realized something I should have seen years ago. I wasn't her partner. I was the infrastructure, and somewhere along the way, she stopped needing me and started replacing me. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car across the street from her building, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel like I'd forgotten what they were for. People came and went, suits, badges, phones pressed to ears, normal life moving forward. Mine had just slipped. At 6:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Vanessa, running late. Back-to-back meetings. Don't wait up. Love you." I stared at the message longer than I should have. Love you. The words felt functional, like something auto-filled at the end of a sentence. I typed back, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Finally, I sent "okay. There's food in the fridge." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, came back. "Vanessa, You're the best. See you tonight. I turned the phone face down. I didn't go home until after 9. The house was exactly how I'd left it. Clean, quiet, lights off except for the kitchen. Dinner still sitting where I'd plated it earlier untouched. I stood there for a while, just looking at it. Then, I put everything away. Vanessa got home at 11:18 p.m. I was in the living room, sitting with a book open in my hands. I hadn't turned the page in over an hour. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag by the door. Her voice carried that familiar exhaustion, controlled, but real enough to pass. I looked up. "Long day, brutal," she said, loosening her heels with the back of her foot. Meetings stacked on meetings. Board call ran over. Then Adrian and I had to go through projections for next quarter. Adrian. She said his name like it was just another part of the sentence. Like it belonged there. I nodded. "There's food in the fridge. God. Thank you, I didn't eat." She moved into the kitchen. I listened. Cabinet, plate, microwave. The low hum filling the space between us. Routine sounds. Familiar. Almost comforting. If I didn't know better. She came back with a plate and dropped into the chair across from me, already taking a bite. "This is perfect," she said. Seriously. I let a few seconds pass. Kept my eyes on the page. Then, casually, "I stopped by your office today." She paused. Just for a fraction of a second. Most people wouldn't have caught it. "I did." "You did," she said. Then took another bite. "I must have missed you. I brought you lunch." "Oh." She swallowed. "That explains it." I looked up. "Explains what Adrian mentioned. Someone dropped something off," she said, shrugging lightly. "I assumed it was a client gift or something. It's been chaos today." Her tone didn't crack. Her posture didn't shift. She didn't over-explain, didn't underplay. It was clean. Too clean. "I gave it to him," I said. "Figured he'd pass it along." "Yeah. He probably got buried," she replied. We barely had time to breathe. Another bite. Calm, steady. Like the conversation didn't matter. Like none of it mattered. "How is he?" I asked. "Adrian." She glanced up briefly. "He's great. Honestly, one of the best people I've worked with. Sharp, decisive. He gets it. Gets what the vision," she said. "We're aligned on pretty much everything." "Aligned?" I nodded slowly. "That's important." "It is," she said, smiling faintly. "Makes everything easier." She kept eating. I kept watching. 28 years. And I'd never seen her lie that smoothly before. Or maybe I had. And I just never knew I was looking at it. We sat there for a while. Her finishing dinner. Me pretending to read. Same room. Same furniture. Same life. Except now it felt staged. Like I'd walked into a set designed to look like my marriage later. We sat on the couch. She leaned into me out of habit, her head resting against my shoulder. Same position we'd been in 1,000 times. I didn't move, didn't pull away, didn't lean in either. I just stayed there. And for the first time, I noticed the scent of her perfume. Not the one she wore every day. The expensive one, the one she saved for special occasions. "Daniel," she said quietly after a while. "You okay? You feel off?" There it was, a word I recognized. I'd seen it before. Not in conversation, on paper. I kept my voice even. "Just tired." "Okay," she said, squeezing my hand. "Let me know if you need anything." I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded. "Yeah," I said, "I will." She fell asleep quickly that night. She always did. I didn't. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every pause, every look. The guard, Adrian. The way she said his name. The way she didn't react when I said I'd been there. It didn't feel like a discovery anymore. It felt like a confirmation. Something was wrong. Not messy wrong, not complicated wrong, structured wrong. And I had the distinct, unsettling feeling that, whatever this was, it had been happening for a long time. I waited until she was fully asleep. Vanessa had always been like that once she shut down. She was gone. Years of running on caffeine and pressure had trained her body to crash hard when it finally allowed itself to rest. By 12:07 a.m., her breathing had settled into that deep, even rhythm. I stayed in bed another 10 minutes, just listening, making sure. Then I got up. I didn't turn on any lights. I didn't need to. I knew the house better than I knew most people. Every creak in the floor. Every corner. Every switch. Her office door was slightly open. It always was. Why wouldn't it be? I was her husband. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. Her laptop sat on the desk, closed, not locked. For a second, I just stood there, looking at it. It felt wrong. Not morally, something else. Like I was about to cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Then I thought about the lobby, about the guard, about Adrian Cole being called her husband like it was common knowledge, and the hesitation disappeared. I opened the laptop. Password prompt, I already knew it. Our anniversary, August 14th, 98. The screen unlocked, her email was open, thousands of messages, nothing obvious at first glance. Vanessa wasn't careless, if anything. She was methodical. So I didn't start with email. I went to her calendar. That's where patterns live. The next few weeks looked normal: board meetings, investor calls, strategy sessions, but as I scrolled back, something shifted. Small things at first. Dinner, AC, 7:30 p.m., no location listed. 2 weeks later, client dinner, Adrian, Il Vero, I knew, Il Vero, dim lighting, live piano. Reservations booked weeks out, not where you take a VP for a routine business meal. Further back, weekend retreat, North Bay Resort. She had told me that one was a leadership summit. I pulled up the resort. Couples packages, spa suites, private balconies overlooking the water. Not exactly a corporate conference hub. I opened another tab. Credit card statements, filtered by date. There it was. North Bay Resort, 1 suite booked, 3 nights, no conference registration, no additional attendees. Just 1 room. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen. Then, I kept going. Because once you start pulling a thread like that, you don't stop halfway. More dinners, more trips, more entries that looked professional until you read them like someone trained to find risk. Not excuses. Adrian's name showed up everywhere. Not occasionally, consistently. Like a second constant running parallel to her life. I checked her email next. Nothing explicit. No, I love you. No careless messages. Just efficient communication. Scheduling. Logistics. Clean. Too clean. This wasn't something sloppy. This was maintained, controlled. I closed the laptop slowly, stood up, walked back to the bedroom. She hadn't moved, still asleep. Still peaceful. I stood in the doorway, watching her. Trying to reconcile the woman in that bed with the data I'd just seen. I couldn't, so I stopped trying. The next morning, I called in sick. First time in years. Vanessa kissed my forehead before she left. Told me to rest. Told me to text her if I needed anything. Her tone was warm, familiar. Practiced. The second the front door closed, I went back to her office. This time, I didn't hesitate. I went through everything. File cabinets, desk drawers, storage boxes, old folders she probably hadn't touched in months. Vanessa organized her life like she organized her company, categorized, labeled, efficient, which meant if something existed, it was somewhere. You just had to look long enough. It took me 43 minutes. Back of the second drawer. Beneath a velvet tray of jewelry she never wore, a key. Silver. Standard apartment cut, no label. But attached to it was a small black tag, white lettering, Unit 3B, Harbor Point Residences. I stared at it for a long time. I knew Harbor Point. Luxury building downtown, glass exterior, private parking. The kind of place that didn't show up on your bank statement unless you could afford not to care. My grip tightened around the key. This wasn't theory anymore. This was an address. I grabbed my coat and left. The drive felt detached, like I wasn't inside my own body. Traffic lights changed. Cars passed. People crossed the street. Everything functioning normally, except nothing was. Harbor Point had a secured garage. Key fob access. But the gate opened as another car exited. I slipped in behind it. Rows of parked vehicles. Clean concrete. Numbered spaces. I moved slowly, scanning. 3B there. Black Audi SUV. I recognized it immediately. Adrian's. I'd seen it once. Company event. Valet line. Same plate. Same car. Same man. My pulse didn't spike. It dropped. Like something inside me just shut off. I parked. Took the elevator up, 3rd floor. The hallway was quiet. Thick carpet, soft lighting. The kind of silence money buys. Unit 3B was halfway down. I stood in front of the door. Key in hand. For a second. I considered turning around. Going home. Pretending I hadn't found it. But that option had already passed. Back in the lobby, when the guard laughed. I slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly. Of course it did. I opened the door. And stepped inside. The apartment wasn't staged. It wasn't temporary. It wasn't something you used occasionally. It was lived in. Furniture placed with intention. Clean lines, neutral tones, fresh flowers on the coffee table. The air smelled familiar. Her perfume. The expensive one. The one she wore when something mattered. I closed the door behind me, slowly, quietly. Like I was entering a space I wasn't supposed to see, except I was. I just hadn't known it until now. On the kitchen counter 2 mugs. On the couch a throw blanket folded neatly. On the wall framed photos. I walked toward them, didn't rush, didn't hesitate, just moved, and with each step, the last piece of doubt I had disappeared. I stopped in front of the photos, didn't touch them at first, just looked. Vanessa was in every single one. Not the version of her that lived in our house, the one in tailored suits. Always half distracted. Already thinking 3 steps ahead. This was different. Softer. Present. In one, she was barefoot on a beach, laughing at something Adrian had just said. In another, they were at a restaurant, sitting close. Too close, her hand resting lightly on his wrist like it belonged there. There was a hiking trail, a rooftop bar, a balcony somewhere I didn't recognize. In none of them was she wearing her wedding ring. I felt that more than anything else. Not the proximity, not the smiles, the absence. I moved through the apartment slowly. The kitchen was fully stocked, not just basics. Someone had chosen what went there. Coffee she liked, olive oil she only bought for special dinners, a bottle of wine I recognized from a trip we took years ago. The living room wasn't decorated, it was curated, like someone had taken time to build a life inside these walls, their life. The bedroom was down the hall. I already knew what I was going to find. Still didn't prepare me for it. King-sized bed, dark wood frame, sheets pulled tight like someone cared how it looked even when no one was there. Closet doors slightly open. I walked over and pushed them wider. 2 sides, left and right. Her clothes hung beside his, blouses next to dress shirts, heels lined up next to polished leather shoes. No separation, no boundary. Not an affair, a household. I stepped back. A slow, measured breath leaving my chest. For a second, my vision blurred, not from tears, just overload. Too much information landing at once, trying to rearrange something that didn't want to be rearranged. Then, it cleared, and I kept moving. The dresser had a few drawers half open. I pulled one. Documents, neatly stacked, organized. Of course they were. Vanessa didn't do chaos. On top was a folder. White, clean, labeled in her handwriting, future plans. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Not because I didn't want to know, because I already did. I just hadn't seen it written down yet. I opened the folder. The first section, real estate listings. Houses in quiet, expensive neighborhoods, tree-lined streets, good school districts. Each one had notes in the margins. Too far from Adrian's commute. Kitchen layout works. Could renovate office space. Adrian's commute, not ours. I flipped the page. Travel brochures. Santorini, Kyoto, Amalfi Coast. Highlighted sections, handwritten comments. Late summer private villa option honeymoon. I exhaled slowly. Not sharp, not angry. Just steady, because now, it wasn't speculation. It was a timeline. The next section hit harder. Legal documents. Divorce consultation summaries. 3 different firms. Dates going back almost a year and a half. Vanessa had met with multiple attorneys. Compared strategies. Chosen options. There were notes attached. Bullet points. Clinical. Efficient. Frame as irreconcilable differences. Establish pattern of emotional disengagement. Highlight lack of career ambition. Document instances of non-support. I read that line twice. Non-support. I kept going. Pages of examples. Times I'd asked her to skip a work event so we could have dinner together, written as me undermining her professional obligations. Moments I didn't want to talk about her company late at night, emotional distance, my job, my stability, my lack of desire to chase titles. Rewritten as failure. I set the papers down carefully. Not because I was calm, because if I moved too fast, I felt like something inside me might crack. This wasn't just betrayal. This was construction. She hadn't drifted away from the marriage. She had built a case to exit it, systematically, methodically, using the same skills that made her successful. The final page in the folder was a timeline. Typed, clean, clear. File for divorce, February, finalize, June. Transition assets, public narrative, aligned. Engagement, fall, marriage, December, no hesitation, no uncertainty. Every step accounted for. Including me, or, more accurately, how to remove me. I closed the folder, set it back exactly where I found it. Then, I took out my phone and started documenting everything. Photos of the apartment, the closet, the kitchen, the bed, the pictures, the documents, every page, every detail. If this was a system, then I was going to treat it like one. I sat down on the edge of their couch when I was done, hands resting on my knees, looking around, trying to feel something clear. Anger, grief, anything. But what I felt instead was quiet, not peace, not acceptance, just the absence of confusion. For the first time since the lobby, everything made sense. Why she'd been distant. Why schedules didn't line up. Why conversations felt rehearsed. Why she'd stopped asking about my day. I wasn't losing her. She'd already left. This was just the version of her life where I didn't exist. I stood up, took one last look around the apartment, at the life she'd built without me. Then, I walked out, closed the door behind me, and didn't look back, because now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. And more importantly, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I didn't confront her. That was the first decision I made, not because I didn't want to, but because I understood something now that I hadn't before. Vanessa didn't react to emotion. She managed outcomes. If I walked in angry, if I raised my voice, if I demanded answers, I'd just become another entry in her notes. Emotional instability, hostile behavior, unpredictable. No. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it on ground I understood. Numbers, systems, evidence. I went home, sat down at the same desk where I'd been paying our bills for years, and started going through everything. Not like a husband, like an auditor. Our joint account first. 2 incomes, mine steady, predictable, hers larger, variable, but consistent. Monthly inflow average just under $18,000. Our expenses: mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, maintenance, around $9,000. We should have been saving roughly $9,000 a month. Over 3 years. That's over $300,000. I checked the savings account, $52,000. I stared at the number for a long time. Then, I started pulling statements, month by month, line by line. And there it was. Not in one place. Not obvious. Distributed. Rent payments $3,400 a month. Harbor Point residences. Furniture purchases West Elm. Restoration hardware, $18,000 over time. Travel, airlines, hotels, resorts. Charges that never showed up in any story she told me. Restaurants, high-end, consistent. Always 2 people. She hadn't hidden it. She just blended it, spread it thin enough across time that it didn't spike any alarms. Unless you were looking for it. Unless you knew something was wrong. I leaned back in the chair, closing my eyes for a moment. This wasn't just an affair. I'd been funding it. Every dinner I reheated alone. Every night I stayed home while she worked late. Every dollar I thought we were saving for our future had been feeding a life she was building without me. I opened her personal credit account next. The one she said was for business expenses. Same pattern. Only cleaner. Less diluted. That apartment. Those trips. That life. All of it tied together. Documentable. Traceable. Provable. Good. I started downloading everything. Statements, transactions, dates. Building folders. Creating timelines. Cross-referencing entries with her calendar. Dinner on Tuesday, charge on Wednesday. Trip on the 14th, flight booked on the 10th. It all aligned. Perfectly. Of course it did. Vanessa didn't do sloppy. Then I shifted focus. From the marriage to the company. Meridian Health Systems. I wasn't an insider, but I didn't need to be. Public filings told stories if you knew how to read them. Quarterly reports, department allocations, executive restructuring notes. I pulled everything I could access. And I read. Slowly. Carefully. The same way I would if I were assessing risk exposure for a client. At first, it looked like growth, expansion, reallocation of resources to high-performing divisions, standard executive movement. But then, the pattern emerged, subtle, but consistent. Adrian Cole's department had been receiving increased budget allocations, not drastic, incremental, over time. Enough to shift weight without triggering immediate concern. Key accounts were being reassigned under his oversight. Strategic initiatives routed through him, decision authority expanding without a formal title change. He wasn't just a VP anymore. He was being positioned, prepared. There was even a draft proposal buried in meeting notes for a new role. Chief Operating Officer. A position that didn't exist yet, but would. Soon. With Adrian in it, I sat there, staring at the screen, putting it together. The apartment, the timeline, the divorce strategy, the asset transition, the career positioning. This wasn't 2 separate problems, it was one system. Personal life and corporate structure aligned, optimized, for the same outcome. Remove me, elevate him, secure her future. At every level, I let out a slow breath. Then, I did what I should have done years ago. I stopped seeing her as my wife, and started seeing her as a risk profile. conflict of interest, misallocation of shared assets, potential breach of fiduciary duty, personal gain influencing corporate decisions. That wasn't just unethical. It was actionable. I gathered everything, organized it. Clean, linear, undeniable. Then I made one phone call. Thomas Hale, chairman of the board. We'd met twice, briefly. He answered on the third ring. Thomas Hale, Mr. Hale. This is Daniel Mercer, Vanessa's husband. Pause. Recognition. Of course. Is everything all right? No, I said. It isn't. And it involves your company. Silence. Then, what kind of issue are we talking about? The kind that involves executive misconduct, conflict of interest, and unauthorized internal restructuring. Another pause, longer, this time. Do you have documentation? Yes. Can you meet? I can meet today. Send me the address. He arrived exactly 2 hours later, gray suit, controlled expression. The kind of man who had spent decades making decisions that affected people he didn't know. I offered him coffee. He accepted. We sat in the living room, the same room where Vanessa and I had watched movies, celebrated promotions, built something I now understood hadn't been real for a long time. Show me, he said. I turned the laptop toward him and walked him through it. The apartment, the photos, the financial records, the timeline, the corporate restructuring, the budget shifts, Adrian's positioning. I didn't rush, didn't dramatize, just laid it out, piece by piece, the way you present a case when you know it holds. Thomas didn't interrupt, not once, but I watched his face change, subtly, tightening at the jaw, eyes narrowing slightly at certain points. When I finished, he leaned back, ran a hand slowly across his mouth. Jesus, he muttered. He looked at me. This is extensive. It's accurate, I said. I believe you. He tapped the table lightly, thinking. She's been reallocating internal resources without full board disclosure, he said. And if it's tied to a personal relationship, it is. He nodded once. Sharp, decisive. I need copies of everything. I handed him a USB drive. Everything's organized, I said. Financials, timelines, supporting material. He took it, held it for a moment. Then, looked at me again. I'm sorry, he said, and I believed him. Not for what she'd done to me, for what this meant for his company. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said. That wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. I'm doing it because it's the truth, and I'm done pretending not to see it. He stood. So did I. We're calling an emergency board meeting, he said, immediately. He extended his hand. I shook it, firm, final. And as he walked out the door, I realized something. For the first time since this started, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was acting, and whatever came next wasn't going to be decided in the dark. Vanessa came home earlier than usual. 6:12 p.m. I heard her car pull into the driveway. The engine cutting off sharper than normal. The front door opened harder than it needed to. Her heels hit the floor fast, controlled but barely. I was in the kitchen, finishing dinner. Same as always. Same routine. Except this time, I wasn't pretending anything was normal. She stepped into the doorway and stopped. I didn't turn around right away. I let the silence sit between us. Then, you called Thomas Hale, not a question, an accusation. I set the knife down carefully on the cutting board before turning to face her. I shared information, I said. Information the board deserved to have. Her face tightened. Not confusion, not denial, recognition. You had no right, she snapped. That was internal. Confidential. You went through my personal files, my accounts, our accounts, I cut in. Our money, our life. She took a step forward. This has nothing to do with you, I almost smiled. That's the problem, I said. It has everything to do with me. You just decided I didn't matter anymore. Her expression flickered. Just for a second. Then it hardened again. What do you want? She asked. The house, money. Is that what this is? I shook my head slowly. I don't want anything from you. Vanessa, that landed. Because she didn't understand it. People like her always understood transactions. They struggled with anything that didn't have a price. I found the apartment, I said. That did it. Everything drained out of her face. She didn't speak, didn't try to deny it. Good. I pulled my phone out and set it on the counter, sliding it toward her. Photos. The living room, the bedroom, the closet. Her clothes next to his, the folder. Future plans. She stared at the screen like it might rearrange itself if she waited long enough. How long? I asked. Silence. How long has he been your husband at work? Her jaw tightened. That's not what. How long? I repeated, my voice flat. 3 years. There it was. Clean, unfiltered, the truth. When it finally showed up, didn't need decoration. I nodded once. 3 years, I said. while I was paying the mortgage, handling the bills, planning a future you'd already replaced. It wasn't like that, she said quickly. It started as work. It just evolved into a second life. She flinched. I didn't plan for it to go this far, she said. I let that sit for a second. Then, I stepped closer. You did plan, I said quietly. That's the problem. I tapped the phone. The apartment isn't an accident. The money isn't an accident. The legal consultations. The timeline. That's not something that just happens. Her eyes filled. But she didn't cry yet. You don't understand the pressure I've been under, she said. The expectations, the board, the growth targets. No, I said. I understand perfectly. I held her gaze. You needed someone who fit the version of your life you were building. She shook her head. That's not fair. Fair, I repeated, the word sounding strange in my own mouth. You want to talk about fair? I gestured around the house. I gave you 28 years. I built everything under your feet so you could climb. I gave up things I wanted, things that mattered to me because I thought we were building something together. My voice didn't rise, didn't crack. It just narrowed. You weren't building with me, I said. You were building your exit. She broke then, tears, real ones. I was going to tell you, she said, when no answer. Before or after you filed for divorce? I asked. Still nothing. That's what I thought. She covered her face with one hand, shaking her head. I didn't want to hurt you. I almost laughed. You built a system, I said. You documented every argument, every moment I didn't fit your narrative. You were going to walk into a courtroom and make me the reason your marriage failed. Her eyes snapped back to mine. I never. You wrote it down, Vanessa, I said. Sharper now. I read it. Lack of ambition. Emotional distance. Failure to support. Each phrase landed like a weight between us. You turned my life into evidence. She was crying openly now. Please, she said. We can fix this. I'll end it with Adrian. I'll do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, anything. I studied her for a long moment. Not the woman I married. The one standing in front of me now, desperate, not because she'd lost me, because she was losing everything. That's the part you still don't understand, I said. This isn't something to fix. She shook her head frantically. Daniel, please. 28 years past tense, I cut in. The word hit harder than anything else I'd said. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like something inside her had finally registered. You made your choice, I said. You made it 3 years ago. I'm just catching up. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Final. I turned back to the stove, turned off the heat, reached for my keys. She stared at me. Where are you going? Not here. Her voice cracked. You're just going to walk out? I looked at her one last time. You already did, I said. I left that night. Didn't pack much, just what I needed. Clothes, laptop, documents. I checked into a hotel 20 minutes away. Quiet, anonymous. Exactly what I needed. Monday morning. I filed for divorce. My lawyer didn't hesitate when she saw the evidence. Clear case, she said. Financial misconduct, documented intent, asset diversion. You're going to be protected. I don't want to win, I told her. I just want out, she nodded. You'll get both. That same afternoon, Thomas Hale called. It's done, he said. What is emergency board meeting? Adrian Cole has been terminated. Effective immediately. I said nothing. Vanessa's been placed under formal investigation, he continued. Her authority is suspended pending review. We're bringing in a forensic team. I leaned back in the chair. Not satisfied. Not relieved. Just, steady. She built this, he said. We're just pulling it apart. Later that night, Vanessa called. I let it ring once, then, I answered. Her voice was wrecked. You've destroyed everything. I closed my eyes for a moment. No, I said, I didn't. Silence. Then, you did that yourself. She started crying again. Frank Adrian lost his job, the board, my position, everything is collapsing. And now you want me to fix it? I asked. No, please, we can still. You don't get to come back now, I said. My voice was calm, flat. Done. You don't get to build a replacement for 3 years and then panic when it falls apart. Daniel. Please, I cut her off. At least be honest about one thing, I said. You didn't lose me tonight. Another pause. You lost me the day you got the key to that apartment. I hung up. She called back. I blocked the number. And for the first time since all of this started, the silence felt clean. The divorce took 4 months. Clean, efficient, just like everything Vanessa ever did. At first, she fought it. Not loudly. She never did anything loudly, but strategically. Delays, requests, attempts to reframe things. It didn't work. The evidence was too clear, too organized, too complete. My lawyer handled most of it. I showed up when I had to, signed what needed signing, and stayed out of everything else. by the end of it. I kept the house, she kept her car, and whatever was left of her reputation. The board investigation wrapped not long after. Vanessa didn't get a second chance. No quiet transition. No graceful exit. She was forced to resign. Official statement: leadership restructuring. Unofficial reality: she'd crossed a line the board couldn't ignore. Conflict of interest, misuse of resources, breach of fiduciary responsibility. Adrian tried to fight it. Filed a complaint, threatened legal action. It didn't go anywhere. Turns out, having an undisclosed relationship with the CEO while benefiting from internal restructuring isn't a strong position to argue from. Last I heard, they didn't last long. A few months, maybe. Then it fell apart. No company, no shared future, no system left to hold it together. Just two people who had built something on the wrong foundation. Watching it collapse, I sold the house in June. Not because I had to. Because I couldn't stay there. Every room carried a version of a life that didn't exist anymore. The kitchen where I cooked for two people who weren't both present. The living room where we sat side by side, pretending nothing was wrong. The bedroom where I slept next to someone already living somewhere else. I didn't want to keep any of it. I moved into a smaller place, a condo near the water. Nothing impressive. But it was mine, quiet, simple, honest, no extra rooms, no empty space pretending to be something meaningful. Just enough. The first few months were strange. Not painful in the way people expect, not dramatic, just quiet. No messages coming in late at night. No waiting. No wondering. No background tension I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. Just silence. At first, it felt unfamiliar. Then, it started to feel like relief. I started therapy about 6 weeks in, not because I was falling apart, because I didn't want to carry anything from that life into whatever came next. Dr. Elaine Foster, direct, no nonsense. She didn't let me hide behind logic. Didn't let me reduce everything to systems and patterns. You were betrayed, she said in our second session, not outperformed. That stuck with me. Because for a while, I'd been trying to process it like a failure on my end. Like if I'd been different, more ambitious, more aligned, more something, it wouldn't have happened. She shut that down fast. This wasn't a gap, she said. It was a decision, hers. So I stopped trying to solve it and started accepting it. One day at a time, no rush, no timeline, no 5-year plan. For the first time, in a long time, I wasn't building toward anything. I was just living. I started dating again in the fall, nothing serious at first, coffee, conversations, learning how to be present without analyzing every detail. It was slower than I expected, and harder. Trust doesn't come back all at once. It returns in pieces, in small moments, in things that don't feel staged. I met Hannah at a bookstore. No setup, no app, just reached for the same book at the same time. We laughed, talked, kept talking. She knew everything. I told her early, not the highlights. The truth. She didn't flinch, didn't try to fix it. Just listened. And stayed. That was enough. I ran into Vanessa once, about 8 months after everything was finalized. Grocery store. She looked smaller. Not physically, just diminished. Like someone had removed the structure that held everything in place. We made eye contact. She froze. I nodded. Kept walking. She didn't follow. And I didn't look back, for a moment. I thought I might feel something. Regret. Pity. Closure. But all I felt was distance. Not cold, not angry. Just gone. 2 years later, I got a message. From Adrian. Short. Apologetic. Said he knew what they did was wrong. That he'd convinced himself it didn't matter. That I deserved better. I read it once, then I closed it. Didn't respond. Some things don't need a reply. Some apologies don't change anything. And some people don't get access to your life again just because they finally understand what they broke. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it. If I should have talked to Vanessa first, given her a chance to explain. The answer is no. Because she had time. 3 years of it. Time to stop. Time to tell the truth. Time to choose differently. She didn't. I just made sure the truth caught up with her. Now it's a Saturday morning. I'm sitting by the window with a cup of coffee. The lake's gray today. Wind pushing small waves toward the shore, behind me. The apartment is quiet. Not empty. Just settled. My phone buzzes. A message from Hannah. Brunch at 11, your place. Or mine, I smile. Type back, the place by the water. See you there. I set the phone down and look out at the horizon. No second life, no hidden rooms. No versions of reality layered on top of each other. Just one life, one version, one truth. And for the first time in years, that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. If this story kept you thinking, stay for the next one. And remember, some stories are inspired by real emotions, but created for entertainment. Don't apply them to real life.